HB 1209 and SB 1360 are, why are they dangerous and why are they unconstitutional? Don't take our word for it, take the word of the leading Jewish American organization. Has anybody heard of the Anti-Defamation League? In fact, when we're lobbying today, we're using the talking points of the Anti-Defamation League, one of the strongest civil rights organizations in the country. Now, the Anti-Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization, has came out strongly opposing this legislation. And they sent a letter to the House members here telling them to vote against this legislation because this legislation limits religious freedom not only for Muslims, but also for Jews. And they're saying that that's unfair and violates the Constitution. But more so, one of the reasons why we should oppose this legislation, and the ADL says the same thing, is because the person that drafted this legislation is a known white supremacist bigot who hates everybody that's a different color, religion, race, or ethnicity other than him. This is the same person, David Yerushalmi, an Arizona lawyer, who wrote in 2006 that African Americans are, and I'll quote it exactly, African Americans are relatively murderous race killing itself. The person that drafted HB 1209 has said that African Americans are relatively a murderous race killing itself. When you visit, if you don't talk to your lawmaker at their office, you can talk to the legislative aide. It's equally as important to talk to them. Make sure you share the talking points, make sure you study the issues, and you relay this information. And at the end, your ask is going to be, vote no on HB 1209, or if you're talking to a senator, oppose SB 1360. Okay? So make sure, and then you basically leave one of these pages with them.
Yeah, Mr. Metz, did you draft this legislation?
I did, yes. And I'm not here to have a protracted interview. I have a very
there's no interview.
No.
But, all the information that we have is that this was copied from David Yerushalmi. Last year's version of the same bill was identical to David Yerushalmi's except the word Florida. And it didn't pass, and this is the same bill as last year. So, what's the real intended purpose? Because some of the lawmakers are saying you want to protect American law. Is that correct? Is that the intended purpose?
First of all, the bill speaks for itself in terms of the actual language.
Well, I want to just know, without you reading it,
I want to show you
drafted
one thing,
it, right? Do you understand the bill?
I do understand the bill, and there was a provision. I want to make sure I get the section number right, but we specifically addressed this year, compared to last, the religious freedom component that you mentioned, sir. And that's section 5A.
When I just challenged Senator Metz, and he wouldn't agree, when I asked him, did you write this? And he, stayed quiet. Hayes did not write this. Metz did not write it.
Yeah, I don't want to go into who wrote it, because trust me, hell, the Constitution was written by racist slave owners, so who cares?
Well, the ADL, which, have you heard of the ADL? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anti-Defamation League, very respected civil rights organization. They're saying that, and they sent this to the House and the Senate, and they're saying that this person is motivated by his hatred for Muslims. He's part of all these anti-Muslim campaigns because they're trying to make a point. Because the legislation itself doesn't say Muslim or Shariah.
And again, I could care less about the character of the person that wrote it.
So maybe
I only care about the effects.
The definition.
Of what was written.
The definition of foreign law would most certainly include religious law, and due to the separation of church and state. You recognize that, right? Due to the separation of church and state. You uphold the church and state division, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Due to the separation of church and state, embodied in Article 1 of the Florida Constitution and Establishment Clause, our courts are already prohibited from applying or considering religious law in any way that would constitute government advancement or entanglement. So our government is neutral when it comes to religious law. They can't be for it, they can't be against it, but people can practice it. So if you create something that bans two people from practicing their religion, and practicing their religion includes marriage and divorce,
I got to look at
then you're affecting the Establishment Clause.
I got to look at the words of it again. But my concern, I believe in judicial discretion. I believe in putting all facts in front of a judge and letting a judge decide. So
this doesn't do that.
breathe.
Yeah, I'm pleased.
If this limits the discretion of a judge or the ability of a judge to look at all facts,
Right.
then I don't support that.
Excellent. Let's give him a right. Hey, all right. That's it.
That's right.
Nobody's saying anything.
You just summed up
Yeah.
exactly what
Christopher Smith is one of the smartest people in this room, everybody.
absolutely.
We have to change things. It's not just about the votes. It's about the whole culture in this town. It has to change, and it starts with us getting involved in the process and running for office. It's not just enough. Like Bill was saying earlier, and ZJ, and one thing I'm proud about in ZJ is ZJ led the way. He was the first Muslim and South Asian to run for office in the state of Florida for the state house. He didn't win, but just running alone was a win. But if he runs again, he's going to win.
What we're saying is you guys are basically creating something which is a restriction on our religious freedom. It's a restriction on Jewish Americans' religious freedom. That's why the Anti-Defamation League has sent this letter.
Who was the first group to actually start sending letters to the representatives and the senators? It was the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. Did we have to go to them? No. They did this on their own. In Washington, D.C., there could be a Muslim American president. It could be any day, inshallah.